welcome to Commanding on a Budget. Today's budget pick is Champion of Lampholt. This 50-cent rare lets you make your army of creatures very difficult to block. If you're playing a deck with lots of +1/+1 counters, she's a powerhouse, but even if you get counters the old-fashioned way, she's still worth playing. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at a $50 Brion Stoutarm deck designed by Judson. Brion Stoutarm is a low-curve commander that allows you to get around blockers by flinging a creature directly at someone. The fact that she has lifelink on top of this gives you a nice buffer so that your budget beats can have time to shine. This deck takes advantage of the numerous budget fatties that red-white has to offer. The deck has a strong general-centric build revolving around ramp, utility creatures, fatties, equipment, and recursion. It tries to have multi-purpose artifacts and lands that can turn into creatures throughout the game. Having a general that is a sack outlet allows you to borrow creatures from your opponents, use them, and then give them back. And by give back, we mean throw them at your opponent's face. Grab the Reins allows you to sacrifice the creature you steal even without Brion on the field, and the instant speed makes it tutorable by Sunforger. Conquering Manticore. A 5/5 flyer with a threatened attached to it makes for a very good recursion target. Molten Primordial completely puts the Manticore to shame with its haste and ability to steal multiple creatures. Zealous Conscripts. Stealing permanents instead of creatures can make for some hilarious game situations. Even fully funded red-white has few tutors, but there are a few budget gems. Hoarding Dragon. A flying threat that can tutor up artifacts and is a valuable recursion target. Sunforger. Tutors and plays 4 converted mana cost or less red or white instants, but also provides +4/+0, which works nicely for combat, as well as with Brion's fling ability. GUDoug Bandit Warlord. An equipment tutor that can bring some awesome samurai beats to the board. Twice. Tajnar Swordsmith. This budget all-star not only tutors up equipment, but puts it onto the battlefield. The best initial equipment target is usually Nim Deathmantle, as you can fling the Swordsmith or GUDoug with Brion, and then use the Deathmantle to recur it and give yourself an opportunity to tutor up more equipment. If the card is good enough to be played in your deck, then why settle for one use? Angel of Serenity can exile creatures, but more often than not exiles cards from your own graveyard so you can get them back later. When used as creature removal, try to use the trick of sacrificing her to Brion with her ability on the stack so that the cards will be permanently exiled. Artisan of Kozilek. Reanimation, Annihilator, and a big chunk of damage when flung. Charmbreaker Devils returns an instant or sorcery at random on your upkeep, and also pumps itself when you cast instants or sorceries, allowing for big attacks and a lot of damage when thrown. Gift of Immortality lets you fling the same creature turn after turn, and possibly benefit from an Enters the Battlefield ability. Also, when enchanting a Burnished Heart, the ramp potential is only limited by the amount of basics in your deck. Marshal's Anthem. A great mass reanimation spell that doubles as a glorious anthem effect. Mimic Vat. Get multiple uses out of utility creatures that die on either side of the board, and since the tokens are only good until the end of the turn, they provide a consistent source of expendable creatures. Nim Deathmantle. One of the most easily abused cards in the format, this equipment lets you repeatedly get Enter the Battlefield triggers and generally makes a creature impossible to remove. Razor Hippogriff. A flying utility creature that is good with Well of Lost Dreams. Sanctum Gargoyle. It doesn't gain life, but it's 1 cheaper than Razor Hippogriff and is itself an artifact. Sigil of the New Dawn. Returning creatures to your hand when they die is a very abusable ability that can generate a lot of extra value and card advantage. Your creatures are big and awesome, but sometimes your opponents will have creatures that are an even bigger threat. Ashling the Pilgrim. An early drop creature that can be gradually pumped up with extra mana. Ashling can turn into a big threat, a potential wrath effect and damage source to all players, as well as a Brion big fling target. Desolation Giant. You really only want to cast this kicked, so it's a 6 converted mana cost wrath effect that leaves a 3/3 body on the board for you. Fault Line. An instant speed earthquake that can save you from creature overrun decks. Phyrexian Rebirth. A wrath effect that typically leaves a big beater in its wake. Starstorm. Instant speed X damage spell to all creatures that can also be cycled when not needed. Sunblast Angel. A 4/5 flyer that destroys all tapped creatures when it enters the battlefield makes for a great recursion target and lends itself to wrath tricks on other players' turns. Nothing is worse than losing to an artifact or enchantment because you can't take care of it. Durgar Hedgemage, a cheap utility dude that will almost always destroy an artifact and an enchantment. Horde Smelter Dragon. artifact removal attached to a dragon that gets bigger when it melts stuff. Ingot Chewer, the perfect creature for blowing up turn 1 soul rings. Leave No Trace, enchantment removal that offers the ability to destroy a large amount of enchantments while possibly avoiding the destruction of your own. It also allows you to blow up shrouded or hexproofed enchantments by targeting one that shares a color. Wear and Tear, multimodal destruction spell. Orum's Thunder, artifact or enchantment removal that can also be used as a creature removal spell when its kicker is paid. There's no need to blow up the board if there's just one problem creature out. Archon of Justice, a 4/4 flyer that exiles a permanent when it dies. Perfect for being flung, especially when recurred. Arrest, an aura that prevents attacking, blocking, and activated abilities. Red Sun Zenith can hit creatures or players, recycles itself, and can actually exile the creature you hit. Wing Shards is a great removal spell that can make an opponent sacrifice multiple creatures with Storm. The best removal doesn't target just one permanent type, but several. Faith's Fetters not only takes care of creatures, but stops lands, planeswalkers, or any number of other threats. Oblation. The versatility of shuffling any non-land permanent into its owner's library makes up for the disadvantage of having them draw 2 cards. Steel Hellkite, a big fire-breathing dragon that can blow up permanents if it deals combat damage, and it's an artifact so it works great with the artifact recursion in the deck. Your commander is at his finest when you have a beefy creature to chunk at someone. Bone Horde. The Mortivore of Equipments is a very good way to pump up creatures later in the game, works well to add extra damage to a Brion fling, and it enters the battlefield with a token that you can also fling. Imperial Plate, a cheap 2-mana equipment that equips just as cheaply. Hamura Human Ascendant, a 4/4 that can't block, turns into an enchantment that grants flying, fire-breathing, and +2/+2 to all your creatures. Hamletback Goliath, a big dumb fatty that keeps getting bigger and bigger throughout the game. Malignus, another big dumb creature on the cheap. Because its power is equal to half the life total of the opponent with the most life, flinging him is a great way to have someone's life total. Precursor Golem, a cheap 5-mana investment that yields 3 3/3 creatures to attack with, block, and fling. Serra Avatar, a signature card in most Brion Stoutarm decks. Because your commander will help you gain a lot of life, flinging a Serra Avatar will normally kill someone. Stratascythe, a quick and easy way to make something legitimately scary just by imprinting a plains or a mountain, whichever one is most prevalent. Aggro decks fall short when they run out of gas, so you'll need to be able to fill your hand back up. Nullspine Dragon. When this guy enters the battlefield, you'll draw tons of cards, and since he doesn't care if it was combat damage or not, you can just fling a huge dude at someone. Reforge the Soul. For either 5 or 2 mana, this card will let you refill your hand. Staff of Nin. Who needs Phyrexian Arena when you can have the pinging staff of card draw? Well of Lost Dreams. One of the best cards in the deck. Brion gains a lot of life, and you can turn that life gain into cards by exchanging 1 potential gained life and 1 mana for a card. Some of the cards and synergies in this deck are very mana hungry, so some ramp is necessary. Armillary Sphere and Pilgrim's Eye help you fill your hand with basic lands. Burnished Heart and Wayfarer's Bauble are great colorless ways to land ramp. Forcean Totem, Guardian Idol, Thunder Totem, and Boros Keyrune are mana rocks that double as beaters. Goldmere and Ironmere can help ramp in the early game and wear equipment in the late game. Court Cartographer, a 4-cost dude perfect for fetching Mistvale Plains. Some cards are just too cool not to be played. Illusionist Bracers combos well with not only your commander, but cards like Horde Smelter Dragon and Ashling. Wild Ricochet, a copy and swerve all in one card, and it's Sunforgerable. The deck's lands: Boros Garrison, Boros Guildgate, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Dread Statuary, Forbidding Watchtower, Gitu Encampment, Stalking Stones, Zoetic Cavern, Haunted Fengraf, Mistvale Plains, Opal Palace, Temple of the False God, Slayer's Stronghold, Sunhome Fortress of the Legion, and 11 Mountains and 10 Plains. The non-budget acquisitions. Sun Titan can get back 28 non-land cards in this deck, plus any land. Considering one of those cards is Nim Deathmantle, there is unlimited potential for shenanigans. Deathrender. Since this deck likes to kill its own creatures, why not have a way to cheat something into play afterwards? Coalition Relic and Sol Ring would give this deck more help in the mana department. Blinkmoth Nexus, Inkmoth Nexus, Mishra's Factory, and Mutavault are all good options if you want more manlands. Balefire Dragon packs a big punch and can help clear out your opponent's boards. Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker allows you to make a copy of a creature and fling that instead of the original. Boros Charm, Path to Exile, and Chaos Warp. Sunforger is a very powerful card, and these additions will make it even better. Now for the strengths and weaknesses of the deck. The deck's strengths. It can win through combat damage or direct damage from Brion's flings. Tons of creatures means constant threats. The deck packs plenty of removal and disruption. Brion's life gain can keep you in the game long after you should be dead. The deck's weaknesses. There is currently no graveyard hate in the deck. It has a hard time stopping combo decks. Red-white is short on draw effects. Manlands and artifacts are favorite targets for spot removal. You should play this deck if you want a deck that can deal lots of damage very quickly. You enjoy decks with lots of synergy. You want to play red-white without resorting to playing Voltron. Or you enjoy awesome toolbox cards. When you're building on a budget, you have to make up for the raw power that expensive cards can give with skilled deck building. I'd like to say a special thank you to Judson for taking time away from his theme decks to rebuild and test this awesome list. Have you ever taken down a fully funded deck with a budget brew? If so, let me know in the comments section below, and as always, thanks for watching.